1, 2, 3.
Okay. Guys, welcome back to another episode of Matt Sandwiches. This is episode 3. Today we welcome Stacey Davidson, an accomplished entrepreneur and expert in stakeholder management, operations, and administration. With over 30 years of experience in both the public and private sectors, Stacey has mastered the art of driving businesses forward in high-pressure situations. Tune in to gain valuable insights and discover how you can elevate your business and personal growth to new heights with Stacey's expertise and passion for self-improvement and business success.
Welcome, Stacey.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had you on before, and we spoke about very controversial gender issues and gender roles, and now we're kind of switching it up today, and we want to get to know you a bit more and your history and obviously your obvious success in business, and so we wanted to delve deeper into you today and see if you can give us any tips, any bits of knowledge that have carried you this far. So yeah, we appreciate you coming.
Great, happy to do that.
Of course.
Ideal. I do a lot of research on sort of business figures to try and get like bits of knowledge wherever I can. And a lot of the time I notice, especially the guys who like have really amazing stories in business, it normally comes from quite a shaky background. They always have something that's gone wrong, maybe in their childhood or early on in life. You can look at guys like Elon Musk, who was bullied in school, guys like Iman Gadzi, who's kind of the young money idol nowadays, who had a terrible upbringing with his parents. Do you think it's fair to draw sort of a link between a shaky upbringing and high levels of success, whether it be in sport, financially? Do you think that you can draw that link sometimes with people? Is that something you could say?
I think that stands to be true, even for myself. If I think of what my driving force was, adversity definitely brings out a lot of, or drives out a lot of purpose in you. Because of your experience, you're fighting against that experience being an experience for all, or wanting to change that experience that you had to something better, and saying to yourself, I don't want anybody connected to me or who knows me or who I've come in contact with to have a similar type of experience. So you start living more purposeful. Your decisions are driven by that purpose, not necessarily understanding the outcomes, but driven by that purpose to just make that change and that transition from all that trauma to something that will be less traumatic for either following generations in your family or society or. So living in South Africa, and that's why you see in Africa we have a lot of innovation still being driven out of places like Africa and India, really because those societies are still suffering quite a bit and experiencing quite a lot of traumatic experiences that's driving that innovation. Whereas in Europe, you're seeing a little bit less of that kind of innovation because people have sort of forgotten about the harsh life story. And so that's why I think there is that link between between adversity and success.
Yeah, but that adversity, there's kind of two ways you can go about it, I feel like. There's the route you've taken where you push hard and you really drive yourself to a new level of success, but you also get the guys that kind of fall off. What do you think is the deciding factor in going in that water share of success? It's like what pushes someone to go to being successful and just saying, stuff it, I give up.
I think it's very difficult to apply a general rule, but I'll give you an example using myself and looking at my own situation. So my first 20 years wasn't easy at all. I don't come from a wealthy family. I'm a Cape Flats girl. One house, all the family lives in it. You don't know what it's like to have your own bedroom, your own bed, your own pair of shoes, for heaven's sake, because it's a hand-me-down type of scenario. Coming out of that kind of family, and I always wanted to stand out a little bit more, I think. I wanted to have that sense of my own identity. And so that kind of drove me to not become a number if you can understand what I mean, because we were just a number, I mean, literally just a number. I remember going to the beach, for example, and it would be a stop check would be 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15. Okay, there's 15 of us, so there's 15, and you sort of lose your identity. You become one of the sheep. And so for me, that was very important. And so there was a lovely sense of competition that started being a number within our family. I mean, if anybody knows my cousins and I, we are quite competitive with each other, but in a I think in a healthy way. It's not a way I compete to this degree that I now have to do harsh and bad things to you. It was more just that. And so, yes, I do think that some people choose not to, because you see, to effect any kind of change in your life, you have to actually look deep at you and your circumstance. And a lot of people don't like confronting that because they don't like what they may find out about themselves. And not everybody can deal or are happy to have the perspective on what you're finding out about yourself and being able to box. Everybody has weaknesses and strengths. But that's not a bad or good thing, because a weakness that you may deem, it's all contextual. Me being stubborn may be deemed to be a weakness in my personal relationships, but it's a damn strength in business because I'm happy to stand my ground. And so we need to be able to, I think what makes the difference is people who are prepared to be reflexive. In other words, look and process your experiences all the time and be prepared to be gentle and kind to yourself by understanding how you operate in a context. What actually creates the greater good for all is what determines whether that's a strength or a weakness in a given situation. So, yeah.
I think what you're touching on there is you like how the connection between like your personal life and business, and how there's major overflows and that kind of thing. And then that's another things I've been learning in my journey in business, is that a lot of your personal problems tend to spill over into business, but you kind of don't want to acknowledge that sometimes. So what do you think are some personal issues that you think have affected you in your business specifically? Like, what do you think the problems that you have in your personal life that have affected your business, and how did you address those to make sure that it didn't affect your business negatively?
Well, I've had two approaches towards business. In my early years, I would say between the ages of 20 and 30, I approached business the wrong way. I saw business to me was income. Business to me was financial stability. So I was chasing after financial stability, and I had no success at business. Because business is not about money. Business is about purpose and vision. Business is also about solving problems. It's about creating value. Now, when you start thinking of a business as a value proposition, you need to assess your own values. Because you can't commit to something that you don't believe in. And it is the belief in that something that sells this idea to others around you when you're dealing with staff. If you're not passionate about your business, how can you expect your staff to be passionate about doing their jobs every day? So that was the transition that happened to me. And that happened to me around about the age of 30 when I started seeing success in my business. I only saw the success because I stopped thinking about the financial gain. I stopped thinking about the outcomes of making money, and I started understanding what it is to have a vision, to commit to the vision, because the provision, which is the financial side, comes if I can chase after the vision. You cannot have a business without a vision. And the vision is not about materialistic things. It is about a value proposition to those outside of you and the business.
So I just wanted to go deeper on that. So you obviously spoke a lot about purpose, having a vision. Now, there's many, especially what's being projected now in the social media field, is that you should be striving for this concept of financial freedom. So I just wanted to ask you, what is your idea of financial freedom, and should it be the main goal and the purpose? How do you work with that?
Well, firstly, financial freedom is something that each one of us need to define for ourselves. I think that's very important, but you cannot define that without understanding what your purpose is. What is your vision for yourself and your life? This is not something that you can find from the outside. Social media, seeing Oprah Winfrey, for example, she may be inspirational. She was inspirational to me, but I couldn't see her and say, oh, I want to do what she done. I needed to find out who I am. So to understand that, and here I'm going to speak about from how I approached it, because to give that example on how I approached it. The thing that I transitioned into when I was 30 was, in fact, I realized that I didn't understand my purpose. Now, you must remember my trauma and everything that I've had a very interesting life. There's very little I haven't experienced. I've been in some heated situations, seen some very traumatic things, and had some very traumatic things done to me. So I was looking to the outside to try and find a solution, and wealth seemed like it. Because look, let's face it, money can buy you all things, but it can't make you happy. Can buy you all things. And we think that our happiness comes from, the big house, the car, the status symbols. Yes, everybody else may love looking at you and you may get praise for it, but you have to go home with yourself at night. You have to lay in bed at night and feel happy with yourself, because it spills over into your relationships, and it definitely spills over into your business and the way you build your relationship with your partners and also with your staff. So when I was 30, I kind of started thinking more about who am I and why am I here? Why was I born? Was I a mistake? Because I was conceived out of wedlock. So I was dealing with those issues of rejection. Was I a mistake, or am I purposed? And for me to find, I was always searching for answers. So I kind of, I've been every kind of religion you can think of. But at 30, I found my true spirituality, and I found that in Jesus, basically, and the Bible. And that was my source of understanding. Right now is the time for me to focus on who I am, and let's go to the source. If God created all things, He created me. Why did He create me? And there was a scripture that stood out for me. I think it's in the book of Matthew. Seek ye first the kingdom and its righteousness, and all these things shall be given unto you. Now, preceding that scripture, Jesus talks about the birds of the air being clothed, the field, food, all of the material things that we acquire through having wealth and money. And He says, all those things will be added unto you if you seek the kingdom and His righteousness. Now, let me break that down for you, because it doesn't have to be super spiritual. It can be very real. The kingdom of God is just what God had intended for earth, right? He wanted to create His kingdom on earth. And that means that everything that He created and put in that would have been good, purposeful, and driven out and made sure that this kingdom is better. Seeking His righteousness just means seeking the right standing with God. In other words, being aligned to that purpose. So I realized that if I wanted these things, I needed to know my purpose so that I could do and fulfill the vision God had for me to be able to. And that's when I started being very introspective. And by doing that, I started doing some reflexive thinking every day. In the morning, I would spend an hour meditating on me, understanding me, asking God to help me and understand who I am. And He took me back to when I was 3 years old, when I had a fight with my mom. And I was known for taking off my clothes, my shoes, giving it through the windows, my toys, handing it to people through the windows all the time. People would ask me, I was like, that house, people probably thought that, sure, if the windows are open, we can get something out. Because I would take things of my mother's also. I'll give. And my mom just left the windows, and they used to bolt it, tie it shut so that I can't open windows. And she left it open, and she came into the room, and I was standing in my panties and my vest, my clothes, my shoes, my toys. I was handing out things through the windows, and some of the ornaments had also gone. And of course, she lost it with me. At that stage, I didn't know how hard they had to work to give me those things, but I got a bit of a spanking, and in my sobbing, I said to her, one day I'm going to be very rich because I want to give back to those people. I want to give to the poor. They don't deserve to be poor. I want to give to the poor. So what that made me realize when I started thinking that my 3-year-old self was talking about a certain characteristic and trait that I had in me, which is I'm a giver. I enjoy seeing people prosper. around me. How am I going to do that? Right. So that became my focus. And as a result of that, whenever I looked at a situation, a business opportunity, I would assess it. Am I going to be using all my skills to help prosper others, prosper my society, prosper the greater good kind of thing? And that would be determining, not what was my shareholding, what was my rate of return. Yes, those things are important to look at the end of the day, but it's not the primary focus. The first thing I needed to assess was, am I aligned to this from a value, a skills, and a purpose perspective? And that's when I made the transition. And by the age of 32, I made my first million.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I want to go back to a point that you made earlier in that you had to align your business to your values, and you said you were more income focused at first, and then you went into sort of looking more into the values and how that can inspire your business. How can you make that shift when you're struggling to maybe afford rent sometimes, some food sometimes? Like, how can you not make income the main focus and the main goal when you're struggling to provide basic things like that and still trying to run your business?
So that was me. I was a single mother. I was a salaried staff. I was just about covering all the expenses every month with my salary. But I took the leap and I said to myself, how important is it for me to transition from being an employee to an employer? Is it something I want to do? And if I'm going to do that, how do I do it? What is my vision? So I set myself a goal. My 30th birthday, I set myself a 10-year horizon, saying that by the time I'm 40, I want to no longer be an employee. I want to be an employer. How do I go about that? I needed to be integritous about it. So I spoke to my seniors about it. I spoke to my the employer at the time when I was 30, and I said, this is who I am. This is what I want to be. I want to explore, and I've got this business idea which I want to explore. And I was open and honest about it, and I said it wouldn't affect my work. So I worked my 8-hour day. In fact, I've never worked 8 hours. I've always worked more.
Yeah.
But I gave what was due in terms of my contract, because that is a commitment to an employer so that I could keep my family afloat. And then everything after that, weekends and all of my spare time, was focused on creating a business. And by the time, like I say, I was 32, I made my first million. By the time I was 33, I got one of the bigger banks to ask me to come and pitch for work, and I declined the work. And I declined it on a question of values. I wasn't prepared to promote something that I could see was basically abusing the masses. And that's also what drove me out of the financial services sector to shift into becoming more of a social entrepreneur, was because I started seeing that more and more and more through my business consulting. And I kept saying to myself, there has to be more to business than just profit. Profit's important, but there has to be more. And yes, by the time I was 40, I was an employer, a social entrepreneur. I started a business which looked at how striking balances between environment and profit. The triple bottom line became a reality for me. And so that's how Radisa was birthed. So yeah, you can do it, but I needed to have that vision. And going to explain further a little bit what Matthew said earlier was, you can see that once you have the vision, the provision comes, the money comes, the people comes, the idea comes, because people are attracted. I mean, when you see something, why do you watch something on social media? It's somebody's passion. It's the way they can convey, and that passion comes through not only by the words you say, but you exude it. You start living it. You start breathing it. Your vision becomes so important that my family was embroiled in it, because my son, being young, knew and understood. I took him along the journey. I said to him, listen, I'm not going to be the mom that's going to be packing in your lunches every day and sitting at the side of the courts. But you can either have my time or you can have my outcome. We can't have both. So you need to understand, I needed to be honest and communicate what I was wanting to achieve and why I'm wanting to achieve it, so that he understood I'm not just abandoning him for the sake of business and for my own ego. No, it's about him and all of his children's children thereafter, that my vision is never again will a Davidson go through what I've gone through. That was the vision. And that was what financial freedom meant to me. Right. And so that vision, and marrying that vision of never again shall a Davidson suffer like I suffered, or have the lack like I suffered, because I wanted to become a lawyer and I couldn't, because we couldn't afford to send me to university. I got in, had to leave. There's all of, I don't want my children and their children to be limited at excelling because the provision isn't there. And so, yes, on the flip side of that, it could be, but now they're going to have a cushy life and they may not be as driven as you. Well, it depends on how you handle it and how you actually educate them around things. It doesn't necessarily mean because I have that they have. My legacy helps. My legacy is not your legacy.
Yeah.
You've got to create your own legacy. But the thing that was so important for me to realize, and when I had one success after the other, was the whole shifting away from working for resource and starting to work and pour my energy into purpose and vision, because resource comes with that.
Yeah.
I mean, I even after having the conversation with my boss, I was telling Matthew the one day about the story where I was like, how am I going to increase my, I need to earn a little bit more and I need to do all of this. And I thought, no, the focus, have this conversation. And I ended up getting a promotion. Even though they know that I got a promotion. Because you see, it's also your attitude towards your work. I see everybody as a client, whether it's my employer or not. I'm not doing them a favor to come to work in the morning. My reputation is far more important than anything else. I like to know, and one of the things to set my purpose, I also wrote my own obituary. What do I want to have people say at my death? And once I put those words to paper, I said to myself, that's the life I've got to live. Because that's the standard I need to set. That's what my brand and my name needs to mean to people. And very interesting, we had these... you have these team building exercises and people always ask you, to express what somebody, your colleague, means to you. And a real thing that people couldn't understand why I was sort of tearful when I was reading what they were writing about me. It wasn't because I'm emotionally attached to things. It was because I was starting to see my own vision. The plan I made known for myself was coming to light. People were seeing it in me, and that was powerful. And that motivated me even more. So your motivation has to come from within. It has to be something that you set for yourself. You set the rules. The rules are not made for you. You set your rules. And your rules need to be governed by your purpose and who you believe you are. And it is never negotiable.
No, I love that you've shared that story, because I think that's a perfect illustration of what I think that's what I think people should be striving for. It's because this new narrative is that accumulate as much wealth as you can, no matter what. Forget about your values. Just get the man, because no one cares about your values at the end of the day. When you're supporting your family, when you're supporting your kids, and you got the nice house, no one's gonna say anything against you. But it's not about what other people are going to say. It's going to be what you think about yourself at the end of the day. So if you make your millions through doing some shady stuff, sure, your family's sorted and you're a great guy, you're supplying for people, but what are you going to think about yourself at the end of the day? Are you going to look at yourself and be proud of what you've done overall? And I think that narrative is getting pushed out of just, get as much money as you can, and I think it's all driven for ego. It's all driven for status and being the top dog, the top man. And I completely disagree with that ideology.
I totally agree with you, and I do see it. And we also need to let's just elevate ourselves a little bit higher and look at that scenario and unpack it a little bit. Because if you think about it, why is that a strategy that's being punted and bought? Okay. If we have more people chasing after money, right, and status and the things we create more slaves to debt. It pays for this current system to have that. It doesn't pay for you to. Those things are all superficial. They're here today, gone tomorrow. One bad mistake along the way, you could lose everything. Now, let me tell you something about business. Business and success is not a destination. It's a journey. Success is not something that you don't arrive there. You not suddenly wake up and you worked for 10 years and now I'm successful. No. Success is always, I don't feel successful. Other people see me as successful. I don't feel successful because, remember, I'm driving my own dream, my own purpose. So success is something that you've
got an unobtainable goal. And
yes.
And that's what's good.
Yes.
That's what Jordan Peterson talks about.
So I never
the most.
stop.
Yes. It's always the next thing. It's always how do I get there?
And for me, like the team building, seeing those things motivated me because it encouraged me to know that if I could write those things 5 years ago and now I'm feeling it, that means there's some other things I've written 5 years ago that I'm going to start. So now I'm fired up. And that's faith. Because you relying on something that you have no evidence for.
Right.
There's no substance to it, but you believe in it and you're hoping for it and you're working for it and you're doing everything in your might to. That's faith. And if you look when you have faith coupled with perseverance, to say, I was knocked off that path now, but look, you guys are well aware, and if anybody goes to go and Google me, they're going to find out I've been embroiled in the past 6 years I had to make a tough decision in business. I was given an option to say, pay a bribe and your business will triple, you can make billions, or do the right thing. And I chose to do the right thing with my partner. We said no. There's no upside to paying a bribe. And they didn't understand what we're about. Our business is not about us making money. Our vision for our business was to create 1,000 millionaires in 10 years. Other millionaires in South Africa. That's because the business is based around economic development and utilizing waste to drive that strategy out. And because the politicians didn't get that vision, they thought that we were chasing after money because this business makes good money. R1 billion a year turnover. So people were thinking, these people are money hungry. And of course, then asked us for the bribe and we said no. And I can tell you now, every bit of state machinery was used. I was criminally charged. I was charged for breaking all environmental laws, charged for fraud, corruption, misconduct, and I had to go through legal battles. And still going through battles to reinstate the business to what it was, but I can do all of that because it's grounded in purpose and vision. When the knock came, I didn't feel like, well, now I need to drop this because I wasn't attaching myself to what I was getting, or I'm attached to what I'm giving. And that's what gave me the perseverance to push through. And if you go in, and I think that's one of the characteristics of true entrepreneurs. We're really about giving. Steve Jobs wasn't who he was if he didn't want to give a solution. He didn't want to just create a Apple Mac machine or a phone. He wanted to create Apple. It was about the why of Apple. Apple was about a lifestyle. It's about incorporating this whole technology thing into and facilitating your growth through their growth.
Right.
So it was that purpose that kept him and that made him number one. If you look at even Oprah Winfrey, she wasn't just a talk show host wanting to talk and whatever. She said to herself, she wants to be different. She wants to give back. She wants to have a platform that allows people to reflect and deal with the issues and blah, blah, blah. So you can see that those who have achieved what we term success, and I'm sure if you speak to them, Steve Jobs unfortunately is gone, but Oprah, if you speak, they're still striving to do more. Because the first thing you realize when you're purpose driven is that success is not a destination. It's not linked to your bank balance and to the material things that you've accumulated. And you also become detached from those material things, because you start understanding you need to pour more of your focus into your purpose and into your vision and into the giving aspect.
But I think some people develop that late. I think they're people that, get to that destination and they realize, wow, I've done this all for external things. I've done it also that people can like me. I've done it also that people can respect me. External, so I can prove myself to the world and whatever. And I think that's when people talk about, being depressed in your Ferrari or depressed in your mansion. I think people get to this destination and they think, well, but I have everything that I said was going to make me happy. I have all these things. I have people's respect. But then they introspect and they realize, well, on this path, I haven't really developed the love and respect for myself. Absolutely. And then only then they get onto that journey of, okay, but what am I really here to do? What is my real purpose here with all this millions that I've accumulated?
Well, exactly. And that's why I'm saying to you now, I mean, I made that same mistake when I first started working. Mm-hmm. But I came out of a moment of disappointment, which was my vision for my life, becoming a lawyer and helping people and whatever, was derailed. And so I gave up on that vision for myself and instead then turned to hustling. That's what I call it. Mm-hmm. When you're in business, trying to make money, you're not a business person, you're a hustler. You're hustling for $1. That's it. And that's why you have to distinguish between a business person and a hustler. Mm-hmm. A hustler is usually young folks who watch too many bloody movies and seen
Wall Street.
They come out of law school and you're in suits. Yeah. They don't show you that you've got to sit and make up files for the first 5 years. Right. They always show you the end of a thing because it lures you into the material stuff. But what this platform is all about, and what I enjoy about what you're doing is, when you have knowledge, you have the ability to make a change, right? And so I'm saying, from my perspective, were those 10 years lost? No, I learned a lot of tricks in business. While you're hustling, you're learning things. You're going to hit your head. So don't beat yourself up if you're following a certain path.
Right.
Change your path. The minute you become knowledgeable, the minute you know something and you know better, do better. Make the change. Start realizing that, if I had gotten into this way of thinking in my 20s, I don't know where or how. I mean, 10 years is a long time. You can do so much. Yeah. If I look at the 10 years, what I could achieve in 10 years, having the right focus and focusing on the purpose and the vision more. Then I think to myself, sure, but can you imagine if I had another 10 years added to that? But that was my journey. I made that. I didn't know better. Mm-hmm. I didn't have the fortune, the good fortune of having people around me that I could talk to about. I mean, I remember when I spoke to my father about wanting to be an entrepreneur and run into a business, he thought I was crazy. Like, what? You don't want the salary and pension and, where your salary is guaranteed? And I said, there are no guarantees in life, Dad. I don't believe in that. I can't see myself pencil pushing for 60 years and, retiring, because now it comes to an end and I've got this lovely retirement fund, and that's not enough for me. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be a number. I don't want to be a pensioner.
And that all started from your childhood growing up.
Yeah.
How many kids did you say? 15?
My very first business, I started when I was 9 years old. And I was a bad hustler. I mean, my first crime was when I was 9 years old. I basically used to, the kids in our neighborhood, I would develop plays or stories, set things up in the garden, have a full production, costumes, and charge people to come and watch it. And everything being sold there was charged. Sweets, drinks, everything. And I would then take in the money and pay all my actors and work out, no, this is not enough. Next show needs to be a better production. So I had those the ways of thinking. Mm-hmm. The principles were there. Mm-hmm. But I got so greedy because we lived in Botswana for 5 years, and in the town that we lived in, we never had things like Chappie's bubblegum and bubble yum and nigger balls and gobstoppers and all of that. So your folks used to come to South Africa to buy certain goods, and your parents would come and buy it and bring it back. And I wasn't into sweets that much, but I knew there was a demand and I had the supply. So I started selling. And my sweets were obviously a hit. And then I ran out of nigger balls, which was a big thing. And I thought, my brother has 2 bags of 100 marbles. So I painted all of them and I started selling them to kids.
As the sweets?
Sweets.
So people were eating marbles.
They were taking marbles. Obviously, they found out. My mom got involved. And that was my first lesson in business. I was chasing after the dollar, not thinking about the quality of the product or anything. I even sold mud cakes because there was beautiful mud in Botswana, baked perfectly, and I would coat it with icing sugar. So this was because I got the nigger balls right. When I sold a few packets, I thought, I can make more money. Let's make some cookies and just, if they're stupid enough to buy it, that's their problem, not mine. That was my attitude. And you have adults in business today thinking like that. I don't care if the person likes it and they bought it, that's their problem. I fortunately had that lesson at age 9. That came with a hell of a hiding, and I didn't understand what I was doing at the time, but I got the knowledge through my mum, who said to me, Stacey, you can't do this kind of thing. And that's when I transitioned out of sales of products and I moved into production, theatre production. And theatre production only happened because I was seeing what the school was doing, and I was a lead in shows that the school were doing, and I'm thinking, they charge at the door. Why couldn't I do this? And I can do a better show because this will be open air theatre in a garden. We'll set up everything, and So that way of thinking, the entrepreneurial thinking, was always there. But like I said, each time I did something and I knocked it, when you know better, do better.
But it's interesting how you selling, you were basically selling a lie almost.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, but I think that's so interesting because I think, like you say, it's relevant because there are people who in this hunt for financial gain, they'll sell themselves, they'll sell their souls.
Absolutely.
And I think people need to realize that stuff catches up to you eventually, and that's why it's so important to be introspective and discover who you are, because you're not just you can't just sell anything and be a chameleon and be like, whatever the people want, I'll give. You have to know you're selling a bit of yourself, so you have to be true to who you are, be true to that this product is a reflection of who I am.
It will always come back to you. Ask Edron, the company in the States. The big financial disaster. Look at the Wall Street Wolf of Wall Street. Same thing. You find a loophole, you exploit it. Look at any pyramid or Ponzi scheme that's ever happened. Even in South Africa here, one of my childhood friends, her sister, she had a financial services company and started this Ponzi scheme using pensioners' money, taking it offshore, making mega bucks. And everybody was, wow, she's doing so well, because that day she came in with convertible BMW to church, and everybody was like, oh, she's doing so well. And a few years later, she ended up in jail for 15 years. It always comes back. And also, seeing those things also made me know better, so I could do better. When I had the opportunity, because I can tell you now in business, I have to deal with decisions of doing right and wrong every day. How do we do our taxes? How do I do this? How do I do that? But all of the decisions are made, and the right way is always the hardest way. It's not the quickest way.
No.
But it's the most, it's about legacy building, and I want something to stand. So what if you're going to build this empire, please build it on a foundation. No house can stand without a foundation, neither can a business. And that's really just what you need to, if you know better, do better.
You say in your come up story, you used to work like long hours. And obviously, I think when you're young, when you're 20, you have that ability, but also you don't want to burn yourself out. How did you manage to find sort of a work-life balance where you were giving your best every day, but also not pushing yourself to a point where it would be great for 3 weeks and then you just a zombie for the next week and a half?
So yeah, I was a workaholic for years and years, and one of the things that happened to me was mid-presentation, I just fell over. And I was working like 18 hours a day, sleeping for 3, sometimes not even sleeping, doing power naps, because you go from an 8 hour where you must commit to this to finishing projects, and I would always I worked from project to project. So it wasn't a case of 9 to 5 or anything like that. And working those kind of hours took its toll. I eventually fell over. They couldn't find a pulse because my blood pressure was so low. Yep. And I was booked off from everything for 2 weeks. I had a bell next to my bed, wasn't allowed to read a book, wasn't allowed to touch my laptop, no cell phones, no engagement, because I was basically burnt out and stressed out and everything out. It was the toughest 2 weeks of my life. I battled more with anxiety than I ever have in my life, because I was cut off from everything. I had no idea what was happening, where. I felt like I wasn't part of the world anymore. But I also had the opportunity to reflect on, why am I feeling as if I'm cut off? And I realized what a control freak I was at the time. And it gave me the opportunity to even think about my management style. Because I was quite a tyrant. Because if I can work for 16 hours and do
why
things,
can't you?
why can't you?
Yeah.
You know, like, what the hell is this? You need lunch. I mean, what, toilet breaks? No. You know, that kind of, I had a bad attitude. I treated people badly. You know, it was my way or the highway kind of thing. And that gave me the opportunity to reflect. And the first week was all the anxiety and the pain and the suffering. And the second week was going through the motions of, damn, I've got a lot of work to do and I've got a lot of people to apologize to. So my first management meeting, when I came back, I called all the staff into and I apologized to them. I was in tears and people were like, what happened to you? You know, did you have a near-death experience?
Pretty much.
Like a new person here or something. And I said, well, what I've realized is that I'm not making you people better at what you do. And this time that I was off, I did end up doing work because I was thinking, and I realigned some people's positions. I changed, and I had interviews with each one of them, and I spoke to them about why. I never took the opportunity to tell you actually why I'm dealing with you in a particular way. It's what I see your potential is, but I wasn't giving back to you and creating that space where you could become what I'm seeing. I was assuming you knew that.
Right.
And beating you for not acting like that. But some people didn't even know that I saw them in a particular way. And so I learned there and then about business is not about a good business leader is not about about having the best ideas, being the best in the office, you know, being number one. It's about carrying everybody, about bringing the best out of everybody. It's creating environments that sometimes seem like hot water and seem uncomfortable, but you need to let the person see that you, the tea bag, the environment's the hot water, but see what's coming out of you. And see what it's doing for everybody around you. How that tea is calming the rest of the people in the workplace. How it's driving us forward. How it's translating to our stakeholders and our customers. And so that's when that was kind of birthed. It was birthed because I had all this energy and I thought I could do everything. And nobody is a superhuman being. Life and business is about balance. And I still work long hours. But when I'm feeling tired, I will rather rest. I have the ability now to switch off. I have the ability to take out time for myself. I know that I can't give if I am not replenishing. And that comes with time. And also, don't be too hard on yourself when you're young. Part of being young, remember, all the mistakes I made were never failures. They taught me things about me. And it goes back to the question you asked earlier. Why do some people excel and why do some people fail? It's the way they perceive that failure and the way they perceive that situation and the way they perceive. So a lot of people, you know, that famous one, when life hands you lemons, drink tequila and make lemonade and, you know, all those usual things. It rings very true. I mean, I did a talk with women one year and I said about, you know, when the shit hits the fan. What do you do when the shit hits the fan? And that hits the fan all the time in life. But you just need to realize that shit is nothing but manure that's needed to grow things. There's an opportunity in every bad situation. And the first place you need to look for that opportunity is in yourself. So don't try too hard to it's like striking this balance of, and that's why it's so important to focus on you and understand you, because you need to understand how you're experiencing a situation, and you do have people around you that you can trust with your vulnerabilities. Talk to them, because they may be seeing things about you that can help you. I'll just give you an example. When I was about 19, after my disappointment with university, I got retrenched. I was like feeling really down, and I thought, I'm just going to commit suicide. I mean, there's no answer, there's no future, thank God that never happened. And then I even got more depressed, because I realized that I'm even too broke to die. I couldn't even afford a proper pill. We only had Panadas, and we had too few in the house.
Yeah.
And I still started popping them, and I was in tears, and I was popping them, and I thought to myself, I just want to die. Elaine, and I don't want to move from here. I mean, other than just my job, my father and my mom had split up in the same week. I had become a breadwinner. Then I get retrenched. So now how am I going to support them? How am I going to do this? I'm 19 years old. I'm thinking all these kinds of things are sitting and weighing heavily. The one thing that stopped me dead in my tracks was thinking about one of my cousins who I respect. And I heard a voice saying, like, I thought to myself, geez, what would she say about this? The first thing that she would think is, this is not Stacey. And that's what made me stop and think, okay, if I'm thinking about what she would say about me, what is that she would say? If it's not like me, what does she see in me? And so instead of taking my life, I decided to have a conversation with her about that experience. And I've heard her saying things to me about me. And then I transitioned with that knowledge. I transitioned into a hustler. Not perfection yet, but a step up from wanting to die. I started to want to explore, because she sort of saw me as a fearless person who's prepared to take opportunity and chance and try things, and I mean, in between my 20s and the first job I got was because of my hustling. I mean, I used to sit in bars in town with a glass of water, just listening to conversations of business people. And one of the jobs I got was because I heard a conversation and I knew, I read those books, I have a perspective. Their perspective is not so hot, or I think I can add some value to that. And I walked up and I just said to them, hi, gents, I hear you're talking about this, could I just throw my 2 cents? They invited me to join them for a drink. I had a conversation with them. At the end of the evening, I gave them my contact details, and one of them happened to be a director of a financial services company, and he said to me, send me your CV.
Wow.
And I'll never forget working with them. They said, one day I'd love to encounter you in the boardroom. They just had this. So again, what I was picking up was I wasn't tripping on the compliment. I was seeing, that's how you see me. Right. Can you see me? Right. Are you comfortable with that vision that person has? Right. And that's the thing about praise and criticism that people give you. How do you feel about what was said? Right. It doesn't matter what was said about you. How do you feel about it? Is it true? If it is true, is it something you can change if it's negative? If it is something that's positive, how do I now harness that and do more with it? And that's what I mean about being introspective, being purpose-driven, that's what it is to be spiritual. Is to understand that the real you isn't the flesh, isn't this body. It's about your essence. It's about what you exude. It's about what people feel you do. When you walk into a room, do people associate values with your personality, or do they associate things? I rather prefer them to associate values. People need to know that I'm somebody of integrity. People need to know that I'm somebody they can depend on. People need to know that they are so. And do I fail? Yes, absolutely. But I strive every day to uphold those values that are dear to me. And I think that is what makes people feel confident in you and makes people want to work with you. And in business, if you don't have those values, if you're not breathing it through your pores, how would you find partners? How would you find customers? How would people want to be committed to you and your business as employees? It's important to have all of those things.
And your meaning and your purpose transcended all physical things.
Yes.
That's it. That's the amazing message that I hope people take from that.
But there's a flip side to that, and you must be careful that you don't fall into that trap. I know lots of spiritual people who think that they must now sit in their room for, and kumbaya. It's you can't also go too far that you spend all your time and you detach all your time. Life is about balance. You need to also know that once you know something, can you act on it?
Yeah. What I see it as is you need to take that meaning and that purpose, and you're not just gonna sit in your room and be kumbaya and take it to yourself. You need to go out into this material world and be the change, be the difference.
Correct.
You need to go out there and almost adapt to it.
Correct.
But not conform. Work in changing the structures, changing the way people think, because you need to realize I can be the difference.
Because that's what technology has introduced now, and that's why we have influencers, right?
Yeah.
For me, I look at the influencers, I check them out, but for me, it's more important to look at other little things. What are the values that there are a couple of influencers that I admire? They're young people who I can see their growth. And I will comment and I will give them those compliments because I see that growth, but I also see that commitment to values. And then I see other influencers that are just hustlers. It's just gimmicky.
Yeah.
It's all about everything external. But when you actually look, and I mean, there've been a couple who have, when the truth has come out, they've actually owned nothing, done nothing, been nothing, but was selling this image, And so we all are influencers. But how powerful are you and what are you influencing? And how is that then creating change? Because you influence, every person that you come in contact with, you're touching them. And that's why like even with me and my staff, I always try and stress the thing that you don't have to say anything. With me, I always tell people, if you have to come and have a conversation with me about a promotion, for example, or about an increase, then something's wrong. Because if I'm feeling you, you'll be the first to know it. You'll know it through me calling you into my office, telling you, listen here, you were off, and I can feel when you're not here because I can see that's, you must be felt, not heard. A lot of people think that by asserting themselves, assertion happens through confrontation and talk. No. Assertion happens through diligence, through commitment, through the things that are intangible. People, you become somebody can rely on because you're a quiet presence that's always delivering. And the first person you need to deliver to is yourself. When you can be a quiet presence by yourself, deliver to yourself, stick to what you believe in a quiet way. You don't have to always express your opinion. People should know, I can't approach Stacey on that. She'll say no. Why do people say things like that? They say things like that because they get to see your values lived out by you. Right. They know what are the boundaries and where do you express your boundaries? Do you have to speak up all the time? That's why there's that saying, empty vessels make the most noise. It's got no substance. And be a person of substance, because then you don't have to talk that much. You create that, you start exuding values.
Right.
And you're an atmosphere changer. Yes. And if you're an atmosphere changer, you're a disruptive thinker. You are disruptive. When you change the atmosphere, you are disruptive because you can impact people without saying much. Just through your presence and things that you do, you actually shake up a room. And that's where you want to be. That's if that's your vision to be a change maker. And then on the flip side, not everybody's eagles, Not everybody needs to be a game changer. This is also something that I learned in my journey. God created eagles and he created chickens. Right. Both are needed. You can't have high flyers making all the change and no doers.
There's no eagles without chickens, though. You need
that balance. You need that, but you need to be the best eagle that you are. And if you're a chicken, you need to be the damn best chicken that you can be. That's why it's so important not to look at eagles. And there's nothing worse than a chicken trying to be an eagle. Right. And there is definitely nothing worse than seeing an eagle who's trying to be
becoming a chicken.
It's the most frustrating thing in the world. And so that's why it's so important to know firstly, who am I? What's my, so that you can live a life of use and not abuse. Abuse is just misuse. And most of us are living lives of abuse, and the abuse is not an external one. We're abusing ourselves. We want to be knives. We are butter knives. We're meant to lay on a table and look pretty, but we're insisting we want to go and be a screwdriver, be the thing that scrapes the gum off shoe and whatever. And then we complain when the occasion comes for you to be that butter knife. Now you can't be put on the table because you chipped, you scratched, you damaged, and then you're miserable. Because now, when you do have that epiphany of what your purpose is, now it's too late. So that's why the sooner you start to identify who you are, what are those traits, and those are the things that you can think of that gave you joy when you were near to a grasshopper. I explained to you when I was 3. That was my moment of knowing what's my core essence.
But you know why I think people are scared to ask those questions about themselves? They're scared to discover what their true potential is. They're scared to actually take note of it. And the reason is, when you see what your true potential is and you know it within yourself, it sets the standards for failure. Because it's far easier to say, well, yeah, I didn't achieve what I could have achieved, but I didn't really try. I didn't really try. It's easier to go down that route than to say, no, I'm on this journey. This is the path I'm going towards. Yeah, but people are fearful of that failure. And so I think the great advice you gave, you spoke about being 19, feeling that pressure, feeling that I'm not succeeding enough. I think that's so relevant in today's age, because we live in this world of individualism and this need for individual success all the time. And it's amplified by social media, Instagram, all these things where we can now compare ourselves to other people's individual success, and asking myself, but he's the same age as me and he's making twice as much as me. He's so far ahead in his journey than me. What am I doing wrong? And we put that pressure, and we're so self-critical of ourselves, and we fall into that pit of being depressive and so negative towards ourselves. But the message people need to understand is, and you've displayed it, it doesn't matter where other people are. No one is on the same journey. You're all on your own individual journey.
Absolutely.
Someone can be twice ahead of you at the same age. Who's to say that in the next 5 years you've developed yourself and you're now all of a sudden ahead of them? But the point is, we need to stop using people as comparison all the time.
Absolutely. What you raise is so important. I mean, social media today has created a whole new set of pressures. I mean, I thank God every day that social media didn't exist when I was growing up. Because I would have had some serious moments to reflect on and think, damn, was that me? Being that stupid, being that dumb, you know. My whole life isn't displayed on social media. And I think one of the ways to do it is to understand that when you're using a social media platform as a young person today, you don't know where you're going to be in 10, 15 years' time. Whatever you put on social media today is eternal. It's there for the whole world to see. Don't let that become something that could, because like I said to you, 20 to 30 was in my hustler years. I did some crazy, stupid stuff, right? If I had been posting photographs and things on there, when I got to the opportunity to change and I would have had to then make sure that whole transition, that metamorphosis was also captured. Or else every time I walk into a room now, I've got to defend.
They'll see 20-year-old Stacey and
yes,
not who
because
she's
the
now.
higher you go, let me just tell you this, the higher you go, the stronger the winds blow. The resistance doesn't ever get less. It increases the higher you go. And you have to deal with so much more and bigger. So the shit hitting the fan, you know, it first starts off with being a Yorkie poo. And then it becomes a Doberman maybe, and then a Great Dane, and soon I'm there where it's like elephant loads of shit being hitting the fan. When it hits the fan, it's like an elephant load. You know, it's and so your ideas have to be a little bit bigger. Your recovery has to be a little bit bigger.
So you need to make the fan bigger.
Yeah, so the fans get bigger because the winds are blowing harder. Everything is everything, you know. And this that's why it's such an important point that you raised there. Why some people choose not to follow this path is because it requires you to take responsibility.
Right.
And a lot of people don't want the responsibility or don't understand that, you know, when you see somebody, even when you're going through your social media and you're seeing other people your age doing things, are you asking what is their backstory? Right. Are you saying to yourself, what did they have to sacrifice to get there? Nothing comes easy. If it came easily, it will go easily. Easy come, easy go applies for all of us. There's certain laws we can't escape. Sowing and reaping is one of them. You know, that law of attraction, whatever you want to call it, whatever you believe in. There are certain things that are going to apply to you. So the issue here is, you know, take responsibility. Take responsibility for your life. That was this. If you done your self-reflection and you know that you're a chicken, be that best chicken. Take responsibility for being a chicken. And what does it matter if there are eagles and other fowl of the air? You were born to be a chicken. Be the best. And that's why you have some people who only wake up when they're 60.
Yeah.
Pam Golding started at what age? 40, 50. Look at her empire today. Still there. She's not, but the empire is. KFC. He was 60 years old when he started KFC. You know, it's never too late to change. But I can tell you now, KFC was started not because he needed to make money and want to make money.
He had a vision. Right.
He had a vision about Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Right.
And he wanted to get it to everybody. And today, he did. I mean, you can go anywhere in the world. That's how powerful a vision is. Coca-Cola wasn't just about making money. It was about, I mean, it's become more than just a drink. It's a brand. It means something, you know. That's what it is. And so that's the power of understanding we each are the custodians of our brand.
Right.
You can also become a Coca-Cola, but what do you stand for?
Exactly.
And that's what you want to work on giving, and it's hard work and it's not easy. You've got to take some tough decisions. You've got to, I mean, there's a lot of things like I couldn't have it all. This notion of having it all is something that we have to wake up to as a lie. I can't be a superwoman, you know, bring home the bacon, cook it, raise my kids and be the ideal mom and all of that. No, I had to, like I said earlier on, I had to have discussions with my kid. I had to have a network. I am because those around me are who they are. But I need to be frank with them about who I am. I wasn't prepared to allow people to make me feel any less of a mother because I was choosing a career. That was nobody's business. It was mine and my child and my mom's business. We spoke about how we were going to function and structure ourselves. When I got married, it was the same thing. We needed to talk about it. I mean, guys, even I remember at our wedding, a few of my husband's mates even joked, and friends have asked me, how does your husband feel about you being the primary breadwinner? And I said, it's nobody's business. That's our arrangement. How we function, what works best for both of us as individuals is what. It's tiring, it's different because I am a woman at heart. I mean, I do wish, there are some days that I say, I wish I could just be, you know, also just focusing on running the home and doing things and whatever. But then I've quickly got to snap out of it and say to myself, hold it. Where's your vision? What are you trying to achieve? And your purpose always has to be greater than you. Greater than where you are, it has to be something that almost is dreamlike. You know, it's even if you look at, and I'll use a scriptural example here, Joseph and his multicolored coat is a classic example of what happens to people who have vision. Joseph said, I'm going to be a great man one day when he was a youngster, and his father gave him this coat and he was, you know, strutting his stuff. And the first thing that happened is those around him criticized him for having a vision. And they bullied him and they beat him and they threw him into a pit and he got sold as a slave. and he worked as a slave. And something that also encouraged me was I was reading the story in the Bible, and it said Joseph was tied up naked, being sold as a slave, and he was a successful man. When I was successful, and then the Bible qualifies to say he's a successful man because God was with him. In other words, his creator was with him. He knew, and he stuck to the purpose, right?
Yeah.
And you'll see that throughout Joseph's story, his gifting or his purpose, he maintained his integrity. In Potiphar's house, he was a slave, but he became the best slave. So he became promoted in his position. And then when he got to the top, what happened? Potiphar's wife tried to sleep with him. And when he said no, she accused him of rape. And so he gets thrown into jail.
For doing the right thing.
For doing the right thing.
Right.
He just was willing to go to jail. He went to jail, and the Bible says, and he was a successful man because God was with him. And I'm like, what the hell's going on here? He's going to jail. How can that be successful? But he's going for the right reasons. And he gets to jail, and there's the two guys in the cell with him. The one guy starts telling him about he's having these nightmares, and Joseph starts using his gift of being able to listen to people and interpret and encourage them and give back to them. And he tells them these stories of as they're dreaming about themselves. He's working with them in prison, and they get freed, and he still stays in prison. And the one ends up working in the palace, and he's the cupbearer for the Pharaoh. And the Pharaoh starts having these dreams. 7 years of corn, and the corn eating, and the 7 fat cows and the 7 lean cows. And now here's how life works. The cupbearer says to Pharaoh, I know a guy, but he's in prison, who can help you and interpret your dream. Because the king is now getting people from all over to come and help him understand these recurring dreams. And Joseph explains it to him. And he likes what Joseph says, because there's favor, you see. There's favor because integrity exudes authenticity. And that authenticity makes people are attracted to something that's real. People like real diamonds, not fake. People like real gold, not fake. People like real people. And he accepts him. And what happens to Joseph? Joseph becomes 2IC in Egypt, which, mind you, is the equivalent of the United States, in that day.
Massive empire.
And because of what he sees and this recurring dream, he says to Pharaoh, we've got to run our economy slightly differently. We've got to, whilst things are going good, let's create a storehouse so that when the famine hits, we can look after our people. And they have so much because of the way his strategy works and his way of thinking works, that he's able to feed neighboring countries also. And that's how his family comes back into the picture. Yeah. So that story is what kickstarted my journey, because I realized it doesn't matter how bad your circumstance is. Going back to that suicide conversation we had, it doesn't, and why people choose to stay down on the ground and why others excel. It doesn't matter when you start, and your success is about always knowing that, one, your creator made you. You are here because you're meant to be here. You have a purpose to be here. And if you do know what your purpose is, Joseph's was that he was a dreamer and he used to think about interpreting his dreams. That became a gift. And that was what was the thing at the time. I say it's now, if you were able to see things and be strategic about things and interpret situations and scenarios and give people solutions. Isn't that what he was doing? He was giving everybody a solution. Whether he was a slave, he was giving a solution to his boss. Whether he was in prison, he was giving solutions. Whether he was in the palace, he was giving solutions. It was about giving. He wasn't taking anything. But look at that entire life. And some people may say, yeah, but he was 30 when by the time he got to, when I'm 30, that's nothing. It's young. He may have spent 15 years in hell. But most people see the palace arrival and they don't see
what later.
And there is nobody. I can tell you now, if anybody walks out there and says success, they went to bed one night and they woke up the next night with uber success, then no. Maybe a couple of Hollywood actors have experienced that, but a lot of them have also died in the process. And superstardom, this whole superstardom, where you're just a star overnight. they take their lives because they are
It's too much at once.
It's too much too quickly. And what this journey does, and that's why I say success is a journey. As you're stepping up, you're learning about yourself, you're knowing more, you're doing better, you're learning, so that each level is important, because like I say, the winds get stronger, the shit hits the fan harder, but you've got a little bit more, your belt, each notch adds to your experience and adds to the way you're going to handle things. So, and you're rooted in a strong foundation. You're like a palm tree.
And I think that Joseph story is it's so true, and it's so powerful. And I think we also found a quote by Kobe Bryant, and he said to a group of people, he said, the grind, that thing you're doing every day, that's the dream. That is the dream.
What are you doing when nobody's looking?
Exactly. And that story of Joseph, it illustrates that success is never the destination.
No.
You people need to realize that you're already successful if you have a purpose and a goal. You've already achieved success. And I will find way more respect for the man on the street who's working hard every day to achieve his purpose and his goal than the man who lives in a mansion who sold himself to get to where he needed to be. I'd have way more respect for the man living on the street. But that's why I think that message is lost, because in today's age, it's all about, no, but the guy who's earning all these millions, respect him. He's a great man. I don't believe that at all. Your character and your values, that's what determines your success.
Absolutely. I mean, you can choose to be notorious. Pablo Escobar made billions of doing what?
Right.
Killing people,
selling
causing
drugs.
trauma.
Right.
Think about, I mean, do you want to live a life where you have a beautiful mansion, but you can never be alone in a room? You have to have bodyguards, and you live every minute of every day, you panicking about your children being kidnapped, looking over your shoulder. I wouldn't want to live like that. How can that be a success?
A success story.
Peace is what you're looking for.
Right.
Peace. I mean,
Peace of mind.
Peace of mind. Right. To have that calmness and that ability to feel good on every level about what you've achieved.
And I wanted
it's just as important as what you've achieved.
Yes, but I wanted to emphasize peace of mind, because sometimes people hear you say peace and then they think, oh, you want life to be easy, no struggles. No. That's not what peace is. Not everything is relaxed and we're all just chilling.
No.
It's I'm able to tackle each challenge every day with the peace of mind that I'm on the right path, that I'm doing the right
peace
thing.
And patience.
Yes.
Are about how you deal with things in moments of adversity and strife. It's not about, peace doesn't mean I'm chilling. Yeah. Peace means that even when I am being, it's like the example of when this unlawful liquidation, and I was telling you earlier about all the people would ask me, Stacey, how can you be so calm about things? And I would say, well, I'd be freaking out. I said, why should I freak out? I did nothing wrong.
Right.
I'm just having to go through the motion. Yes, it is unjust. The injustice is shocking and horrible. But if the peace comes where you know what you know. And so because you know what you know, you're not dealing with all the other emotional stuff. You can actually keep your head. You can stay together and you can stay committed, and you can actually be logical and procedural about things. I was still going to Bryce. I was still having fun with my family. I was still doing all of those things, even though it didn't stop my life from happening. I didn't need to look over my shoulder or feel embarrassed when I walked into a room because, people were going to ask me what's going on with the situation. I could confidently say what the problem was and how we're dealing with it, and that we will prevail, and we did. So that's peace. Peace doesn't mean there's no hard work needed, that there's no hard work. I mean, work is not necessarily always hard physical work, but there's also mental work. Some people aren't able to have the peace to know when they go to bed at night, I can sleep to quiet the voices. There are two kinds of voices. There's a voice trying trying to deal with a solution and coming up with a solution to a problem. And then there's the other one, the voice of condemnation, which most of us deal with. Now, peace is attached to the voice of condemnation. I shouldn't have had that extra drink. I shouldn't have had that. I shouldn't have slept with that one. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have taken this. I shouldn't have. Condemnation is what doesn't create peace. It can only come through you not having control of your situation and your decisions. When you're comfortable with each of your decisions, you cannot condemn yourself. And so you're in peace. And that's what I mean by peace.
Stand by what your decision was, 100%.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask you, what are some values that have carried you to where you are now? And what have your non-negotiable values that have gotten you here?
I think I'm a person that I do as I say is something that's important. People know that when Stacey says something, she means it, and she'll do it. And if I can't do it, I'll also tell you that I can't do something. So honesty, integrity of word, I think are the two things. I'm loyal. Loyalty is very important to me. I think, loyalty it's not blind loyalty, but it's loyalty that comes through, I can only be loyal to something that I am attracted to. So choosing business partners, for example, I needed to look at what got me into the partnership was asking questions about value propositions, not shareholding, not money. It was asking things like, so how do you feel about this kind of scenario? What is your view on this? What is your view on that? Because I needed to know that I could align to those values, and people know I align myself to values. I'm not interested in money. Money doesn't make my world go round. Money is a thing I control. I choose when it comes in and I choose when it goes out. But when it comes to values, and it comes to those kinds of things, integrity. So for me, even when I look at CVs, CVs, anybody can write a CV. Yeah. I do my research on you. I will go check out your Facebook page. I will look at your Twitter handles, because that tells me about your character. The things that people, I don't want to look at the advert. I go and deep dive into the product. What are the ingredients in this product? Who made it? Who created? Where they're from? What drives them? I had this one candidate who was brilliant on the CV. Came in for an interview. Everybody was very excited. I said, "There's just something I'm picking up. There's a bit of the authenticity isn't there for me. I like Park. I'm gonna go and do my homework." Opened up the Facebook page and I was like, is this the person outside of work? Wow. That's what I was picking up. This contradiction, and it's not photographs, it's statements that are being made. Way of thinking. People speak what's in their hearts, and that gave me an idea of the character. I then called the person back for an interview to say, look, what do you have? I need a bit of explanation about this, that, and the other, which I saw on your Facebook page. It's not like I'm going to tell you, blindside you, and I'm not a snooper. I'm going to say, this is what I did my research. This is what I never came for the second interview.
Wow.
So, so that's where I'm saying, a CV can be very deceiving because it's all flowery language. It's like an advert.
Yeah.
When you see a marketing campaign for a product, you know that it's all hype. Now you've got to get into the details and do the homework about the product. And so think like that when you pitching yourself. For me, authenticity, being true to yourself is so important. You can't, I was a hustler, so I know a hustler when I see one because I was one. I know all the traits, but that doesn't necessarily make it a bad thing, because just because you are a hustler in this stage, I also am wise enough to know that at 20, you're not going to be the same person when you're 30. If you are the same person you are when you're 30, then trust you me, there's a problem. You've got to change. You have to evolve and you have to grow. And so you don't have to be perfect. You just need to be pure, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
You just need to have that. Be true to yourself and be honest. There were some people, like, back in the time when I was in the early 90s, when I was sort of a young person trying to establish myself. That was the yuppie era. You know, the movies were all convertibles, the dark shades, you know, everybody. That was when the whole thing started. The young up-and-coming professionals, and it was all about the yuppie-dom. And I wasn't caught up with a lot. I remember there was a woman who trained me in sales. Mignon Fledenman was her name. And she said one thing in a session. I mean, other than the fact that I just loved everything I saw, you know, she was to me the picture of success. The way she dressed, her jewelry, her hair, she was well put together. But with all of that, I was waiting for the substance. So it was the material. Right. And then she said something in the session. And she said, all of you are looking at me now and you see my big house and you see me laying on the deck with the pool. But you know, I didn't get here because of any of that. I got here because I understood that sales is about psychology. I need to get this person to... I need to believe in the product so that this person can believe in the product.
Yeah.
And she said, rule number 1 in sales, and this is what stuck with me. If you can get somebody to say yes 3 times, you're in. And I started, I mean, not a single other person in the session with me when I spoke about it afterwards actually even heard that. They didn't pay attention. I tried it out. So when I was doing my sales, I would like say, oh, I remember walking into a room and a person said, no, they're not interested. And I got up and I realized they said, no, I need to get a yes here.
Right.
So I got up and I walked to the door and I took the door. And as I opened up the door, I turned around and I said, just tell me something. Are you saying no because of the product or are you saying no because of the way I pitched it? And they looked at me and they said, I didn't. I said, well, I need to know. Can we talk about it? Yes. First, yes.
Right.
Sat down, started talking. So, okay, so what is it about the product that you don't want? I could redirect my pitch. I got a yes. But I walked out of there with a sale.
Wow.
Something simple, but that's how you need to. But it's only because I knew I wanted to be successful at the sale, and it's like when you know better, do better. I knew I learned something from her, and so I had to work hard at that strategy. How do I play it out? How does it work for me? I couldn't apply her way of doing it.
Right.
This was my way of doing it, you know, and it was genuine. I was thinking about the 3 years. I wasn't staging, walking to the door, you know, now this is how I'm going to handle it. It all flowed from, how do I get 3 yeses? Think vision, purpose.
And you know, that's brilliant because I was going to ask you people skills or your intelligence, which one is more valuable? But I think you've illustrated it perfectly. I think in business, in trying to make it, and be successful, you need to be a people person. You need to connect with people. You need to develop a relationship and a connection with people. And the link is, you can't do that if you're not being authentic.
No,
you have to. It goes hand in hand. You can't be a people person if you're not being authentic to who you are. And I think that's where people get caught out in, especially in sales. They want to be this top salesman, but they want to be. They're not being who they are. They're selling a lie, and it doesn't work. People, like you say, people see through it. You need to be authentic to yourself, discover who you are, and that will lead into developing connections.
Well, even starting a business, that's exactly what you're doing when you're starting a business. You have an idea, and that's all you have, really. But now, a business isn't the idea. A business is built around an idea. So it first starts off with an idea, and then you've got to sell that idea to other people so that they can come in and give what they can to make this idea a reality, right? And so you've got to get people, and then you've got to get other resources. You've got to get money. I mean, so to get the financial resources to get the idea, you've got to sell the idea. So I do believe that it's a balance between, and also what is intelligence? I mean, people think that academics is everything. Some academics can't ever go into business.
Right. Yeah.
Because academics is a recipe, it's structure, it's formulated, it's a way of writing and thinking, and some people can do that very well and they can't do very well in business. Business requires lateral thinking, but it also requires a lot of people skills. Like I said early on, I had to learn in management to how do I find ways to bring out the best in people? How do I get them to give towards the idea, to be committed towards my idea, to be committed towards my purpose for this business?
Right.
How do you do that? So everybody thinks that, it's very glamorous to be in a senior executive position. It's 24/7. It's you don't have a 9 to 5 because you realize
you manage the people that have the 9 to 5.
Yes, and also if I took my foot off the gas, and if I just told, because now I've arrived,
Right.
everybody's at risk of losing their jobs. I mess up. The consequences of me messing up is that everybody's out. That's the kind of responsibility you're walking with on your shoulders. And it's a heavy burden to carry, and it's not for everybody, because you can't just decide. Once you commit to it, you can't decide that today I'm too tired to go and to do. I mean, if I get a call on a weekend, I can't say, damn. Let me tell you something. I'm human. So I wake up sometimes and I think to myself, oh God, do I have to do this?
Right.
Oh, I wish I could just lay in bed now, but I have to actually get up and go and do this because people are depending on me. And these are the brands and the values that this brand, Stacey, subscribes to and means. So I've got to live up to that. And that's what it is. It's every day making choices. Making choices to serve that brand of yours, making choices to serve that vision. And yes, people skills that's all part of making, bringing people together around, rallying around that thing is what it is to be a business leader most times. It's not sitting in an office, in a fancy office and looking good. That's going to get you nowhere. I can tell you now.
But I also think it's important to note that when you're developing people skills and being authentic, it also makes sure that you're weeding out the people that you don't want to have personal connections with, if you get what I'm saying. You stay authentic to yourself. You can see, okay, this guy, sure, he might have the investment and the supplies I need, but are we aligned? Are we aligned on the same path? Are his morals kind of conflicting with mine? Well, then that's a red flag. I need to know, yes, this investment is good, but I need to step away.
Well, the reason why you're also why you're assessing people's character and values is because business is not about how you behave when things are going good. Yeah. It's about how you behave when that shit hits the fan.
You probably know.
I want to know that I've got somebody next to me. I want somebody who's got my back because I'm going to have their back. Because if I can see that you're a flaky kind of oak,
can't rely on
and
them.
I mean, there have been lots of people I've crossed paths with in my life where, and even my husband knows, I would say to him, I won't even waste my time to talk to that person. Right. And he'll tell me, no, they're good. And I say, two things. This is what, and then he'll say, how did you manage to see that? I say, simple things. I watched how I did this. I watched how I did that. How he interacted with other people, whatever. I'm picking up on all of the things you're not even considering.
Right.
I'm not interested in what's coming out of your mouth. I'm worried about your action. It's telling me about your character. It's telling me how you're going to treat me. It's telling me things like asking, so you married how many times? 5? Going to make me think. It's going to make me think about your sense of commitment. You know, are you somebody that makes decisions rashly? You just jump into things that are serious and you just jump out of things when things get hot. My business partners are all people who have been married to one person through thick and thin. It means something to me. But that's just my little, that's the things that I use. Each one of us need to have those, you know, what are non-negotiables. That's like kind of not negotiables for me. Have I changed some of my, I mean, I had when I was younger, I said I would never marry somebody who's been divorced. Yet I am married to somebody who was divorced. So things do change. But I obviously didn't rush into it. It wasn't like, you know, meet and whirlwind and off you go. It was a whole process to get me on board to feel like, okay, no, this person can commit, and to also understand, you know, what caused the breakup. Where were they? Why did they choose to break up, what was the issues, and I had to
Right, the
adjudicate
context, yeah.
on the context as well as what happened to see, okay, well, this is maybe not somebody who was choosing to quit, it was maybe something else, or maybe, so that's the way you need to do it. But I mean, I just think that life shouldn't be too serious, but it needs to be sincere.
Yes.
And sometimes we conflate the two. We think, if I appear serious, I'm being sincere.
Yeah.
It's not.
Right.
You get some jokers who are very genuine people, and then you get some very serious people who are very flaky. But the issue is that your foundation, your purpose, your vision, your essence, your spirit is everything. That's the solid thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I just wanted to ask some closing questions because obviously we're out of time now.
I think Jan's camera's about to give up. As
Okay.
Well.
Yeah. I just wanted to ask you, your what is your greatest achievement?
My greatest achievement. It's gonna sound so
As long as
weird.
it's sincere.
Surviving motherhood.
Right.
Is my greatest achievement, and that's because I had it when I fell pregnant. It was I was by the book kind of thing, decided I'm gonna do the deed, got on the pill, still fell pregnant, so it blindsided me.
Right.
I was 21 years old. I was a single mom, and I got this job opportunity of a lifetime when I was 5 months pregnant, and I had to turn it down because I just couldn't say to an employer, you can take me on now, but 2 months later I'm going to go on leave, maternity leave. So I disclosed everything to them, made a recommendation, and had to take this responsibility. And then I got retrenched from my previous job when I found out I was pregnant as well, and broke up with my son's father, all in the same time. And that's why motherhood has been I could have seen it as a burden, but I didn't. It was really, Kieran came at the best time in my life. It was a blessing. It was also something that drove me because I was so determined. I was responsible for another life. And I think why it's such a good achievement is because it hasn't been easy, but seeing the fruit of my labor today, he's turning 30 next year. And if I look at his growth even,
Right.
That's where I'm seeing that my values are starting to reflect. I can tell you now, in his teen years and early 20s, it was hell on wheels because I was like having to look at myself and say, where have I gone wrong? Is this because I was like career driven and not? There's like no motivation. There's nothing going on. But I just trusted in the process and trusted in him. And I decided to take my foot off his neck and say, you know what? It's his life. He's got a way to. And the minute I took the pressure off,
He flourished.
He started flourishing.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, I think that's my greatest achievement is surviving motherhood for sure, because I could have ended up in a situation where I didn't have his respect, I didn't have his relationship, I didn't have his love, and I have all of those things from Kieran, and so much more.
And what more can you ask?
Yeah.
Right.
But it still boils down to the way I managed that relationship the same way I managed. In fact, if I think about it, even the control, the control in my early business life to relinquishing control, I did the same things. It's the same kind of messages
Right.
that come through in both experiences. But that's definitely my greatest achievement.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Stacey, that was amazing insight. Thank you for sharing your stories with us, your struggles with us. Hopefully our people can take something from it, and I know they definitely will. So yeah, thank you very much.
Pleasure. Great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you guys for joining us. Episode 3. We'll see you next week.
Cheers.
Peace.